السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يوم جديد ومسار جديد إن شاء الله ورحلة جديدة. راح ننتقل من ليجي إلى إن شاء الله ستوتغارت. المسافة تقريبا 5 ساعات و10 دقائق. ممكن نشوف على حسب الطريق الخريطة تمشينا فيها. نمر على مدينة بينهم في الوسط، يعني حق 2 ساعة ونص. ممكن نوقف على لوكسمبورغ أو نطول مباشرة. راح نشوف كيف الطريق وكيف الوضع. راح نوافقكم بالمستجدات وبنعمل تايم لابس للطريق كله. عندنا الفيديو تبع أمس كامل راح أنزله على قناتي في اليوتيوب، بس جالس أسوي له أبلود. بمجرد ما ينتهي الأبلود راح أحطه في القناة تبعي، وأحطه كمان في الستوري تبعي في السناب. دمتم بود. تشاو. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. وصلنا شتوتغارت في ألمانيا. الآن متوجهين، احنا في المواقف تبع مرسيدس بنز، معرض، مو المعرض اللي هو الميوزيوم تبع مرسيدس بنز. نازلين ندخل الميوزيوم، وطبيعة الحال راح نصور لكم السيارات اللي موجودة في المعرض، منها عدة سيارات قديمة عام الصنع وكل شيء. المدينة هذه طبعا هي مدينة صناعية، فيها مصنعين اللي هي تبع مرسيدس بنز، هو منشأ مرسيدس بنز ومنشأ سيارات بورش. راح نشوف الميوزيوم تبع مرسيدس بنز، خلوكم معنا تشوفوا كل ما هو يعني يخص سيارات مرسيدس بنز. دخلنا تقريبا هنا في المعرض، ولسه ما رحنا الميوزيوم، بس هذه بعض سياراتهم القديمة اللي المفروض معروضة في الميوزيوم. هذه سيارة سبور صغيرة SLK 230، صنعت 1997. كومبريسور. وهذه سيارة معروفة في مصر، ما تحتاج تجي لها المعرض، تروح مصر حتلقاها بكثرة، بس طبعا أكيد ما حتحصلها بالنظافة هذه. ما شاء الله تبارك الله، حتى لونها حلو. وهذه داخليتها. أكيد يتاح لنا أن نقدر نشوفها من جوا. هذه السيارة صنعت عام 1981، يعني تقريبا أكثر من 40 سنة. هذه سنة الصنع 1981. 230 E، هذا الإي كلاس. نيجي للمرسيدس، هذا إي كلاس E50 AMG، مصنوعة 96 V8. هذه واحدة من السيارات الشهيرة في المرسيدس، كلاسيك مرغوبة. الجهة الثانية هنا سيارة كلاسيك جدا قديمة من مرسيدس، مصنوعة 1957، 4 سلندر، 1897 cc. فتحة ما شاء الله. داخليتها، شوفوا داخليتها ما شاء الله تبارك الله. السيارة كلاسيك جميلة، بس غير عادي، اللي ما يعرف يسوق الغير العادي ما يناسبه. مية وتسعين SL. هذه السيارات الجديدة، طبعا احنا مو جايين نغطي السيارات الجديدة، لكن اللي له رغبة في مرسيدس جديدة يحصلها هنا. GLE هذه برضه GLE AMG. هذه بعض السيارات اللي موجودة في الميوزيوم. احنا لسه ما دخلنا لأن التوقيت تبعنا الساعة 4:30، بس منتظر أبو رايد يجي نعرف وقته، على أساس قالوا لنا نقدر نغير التوقيت لأن نبغاه بدري. فهذه واحدة من السيارات، أعتقد أن السيارات هذه موجودة في الميوزيوم عن طريق هذا اللون عجيب، كلها ألوان عجيبة، بس داخليتها خطيرة. داخلية السيارة جدا خطيرة. هذه واحدة ثانية بس ما ندري كيف داخليتها، نفس اللون في الداخلية. الكرسي حق السايق في الوسط، كرسي بوسط السيارة وعليها طاقة شمسية من فوق، تقريبا يمكن سيارة كهربائية، الله أعلم، إنه طاقة شمسية من فوق. سيارة غريبة عجيبة. هذه واحدة من السيارات قديمة، طراز قديم، سبورت رياضية. دخلنا الميوزيوم. هذه البداية تبع مرسيدس بنز لما بدأوا يصنعون. في البداية كانت عن طريق العربات اللي زي كذا، حطوا فيها إنجن صغير وتمشي بحصان واحد عن طريق المقبض هذا، يلفوا يمين ويسار، كانوا سايق سفينة. وهنا كانوا يحطوا اللمبات عشان يضيء الطريق قدامهم. فكانت العربات جدا متعبة، لأنه الكفرات زي ما انتم شايفين صغيرة، كأنك راكب عربة حصان. هذه صور للمدينة اللي احنا فيها. قديما كانوا يستخدمون الدراجات في المدينة. من ثم تحولوا إلى استخدام العربات زي ما انتم شايفين يستخدمون العربات هذه للأحصنة.
Fotoğraf çekeceksen al telefonu.
برضو كان في القطار وكانوا يستخدمونه عن طريق الفحم. وهنا الميناء برضو السفن كانت تشتغل عن طريق الفحم حتى تمشي. طبعا في ألمانيا أغلبها عندهم أنهار، ما عندهم بحر. هذه الماكينة صنعت في عام 1880. وفي عام 1882 طوروها بشكل تدريجي زي ما انتم شايفين. أطول شوية وأقوى. هذه كانت العربة اللي عملوها. هي شكلها زي الدراجة لكن عليها ماكينة تمشيها. هذه مصنوعة في عام 1885. هي مثل الدراجة لكن عليها ماكينة. هذه مراحل تطور المكاين. في 1887 صنعوا هذه. وهذه السفينة صنعوها في عام 1888. وهذه كانوا يطيروا فيها. كانوا يطيروا فيها زي المراوح عن طريق الماكينة تشغله تقريبا بالبنزين. بعدين في عام 1889 طوروها بشكل تدريجي زي ما انتم شايفين هنا. يعني شكلها أجمل من سابقاتها اللي هناك. وهذا زي الترام أو القطار في 1891. الناس تجلس صف كذا وجههم على الجوانب على أساس أنها تمشي بخط مستقيم زي ما تشوفون على القطار. في عام 1892 تطورت بشكل أكبر. هذه زي ما انتم شايفين عربة على ماكينة تقريبا تشتغل بالفحم. هذا مكان الفحم. هذا في 1892. هنا يبين صورة. هذا كانت فاير فايتنج بومب يستخدمونها في الإطفاء. وهذه في 1893 كانوا يستخدمونها زي القطار، زي ما انتم شايفين من تحت في هولند. من دايل مارس موتورايز، كان اسمها باسنجر ريل كار. وهذه عربة بنز فيكتوريا في عام 1893. هذا الناس الأكابر وقتها. هي فخمة وكانت تمشي عن طريق الماكينة، وكانوا في تطور للكفرات تبعها بحيث أنها تكون أنعم في الطريق، لأنه في البداية كانت خشب بعدين اتطورت بشكل تدريجي. هذه السيارة صنعوها في 1902. هذه the first modern automobile، يعني أول ما بدأوا صنعوها في 1906 عن طريق مرسيدس بنز 35 حصان. هذا كانت first modern automobile، اللي هو first modern سيارة. شكل الدركسون تبعها في حين كانت بهذه الطريقة. انتم شايفين ديزاين انجينير، شكل الشركة حقتهم والأطفال بالعربة كويس. هذه العربة تم صنعها في عام 1896. طوروا منها وبعد كذا جابوا هذا اللي هو مثل البونيت في عام 1898. كانت تستخدم في النقل. وبعدين في عام 1899 جابوا حجم أصغر يستخدمونها برضو في النقل. وفي عام 1899 هذه جابوها للركاب، صنعوها أقصد. هذه أشكال المكاين. في 1889 هذه الماكينة كانت 1.5. وفي 1899 هذه الماكينة بقوة 5 حصان. في 1994 برضو هذه الماكينة صنعوها بقوة 5 حصان. لا آسف، هذه كانت 2.4 لتر بقوة 12 حصان. هذه صور مراحل التصنيع تبعهم. هذه النوت اللي كانوا يكتبوها أو إنها شهادات بلغتهم ما هي باينة عندنا. وهذا بيبين لك هذا لما كان يبدأ الجرمن كولونيزم من 1884. The German rich under imperial and joined the race of colonies. In so doing, it becomes caught up in the maelstrom of imperialism. وهذا كان في عام 1889 في باريس. إيفل تاور، مكان برج إيفل. هذه الصورة صوروها في باريس أو إنه رسموها في باريس. كان الإفينيو، أقصد ما هي صورة لكن الإفينيو في 1889 في باريس. مراحل تصنيع السيارات تبعهم حتى وصلوا للأشكال اللي راح نشوفها بعد شوي، مثل هذه. والدراجات في 1903 والطيارات أيضا في 1903. وهذه صورة للمصنع تبع السيارات تبعهم في ذاك الحين.
public towards the end of 1926. July of that year had seen the merger between Daimler Motorengesellschaft and Benz and Company. So this was one of the first passenger car models to appear on the market bearing the brand name Mercedes-Benz. It was built at the Benz parent plant in Mannheim. Later models, those made from 1929 onward, also carried the model designation Mannheim. The car had an engine output of 55 horsepower. Top speed was 65 miles an hour. Recognizing the trend towards traveling in style by private car and the desire for domestic creature comforts, Mercedes-Benz fitted a number of luxurious interior equipment features. Carpets on the floor, hooks for hats and coats, a cigarette lighter, glass ashtrays, pockets along the side walls, and adjustable footrests. One proud owner waxed lyrical about the effectiveness of the powerful sedan in the mountains. We have driven approximately 4,000 miles in the last 6 weeks, taking in no fewer than 5 alpine passes, and not once did we experience difficulties. Both in Europe and in the USA, the 1930s were marked by a growing enthusiasm for aerodynamics and speed. This fascination is also reflected in the body of this Mercedes-Benz 320 streamlined sedan. Since the First World War, automotive manufacturers had been closely following developments in aircraft and ship design. Hermann Ahrens, a body designer working for Mercedes-Benz, translated the latest aerodynamic research into elegant vehicle lines. His bodies had dynamism and grace, and despite their classical elegance, they stood for progress and modernism. In particular, the streamlined sedans unveiled in 1935 embodied state-of-the-art Mercedes-Benz design. Gone were the days when wealthy customers had to ask coach-building specialists in Berlin, Paris, and Milan if they sought a touch of fashionable sophistication. Such niceties came at a price, however. Any customer with an ambition to own the streamlined 320 model could expect to pay an extra 5,550 Reichsmarks on top of the standard model price tag, equivalent to a supplement of 60%. Motor Show of 19... The Mercedes-Benz 300 SEL 6.3 caused a sensation at the Geneva Motor Show of 1968. The new top-of-the-range model in the premium class launched in 1965 took everyone by surprise. The 6.3 referred to the car's 6.3-liter or 355 cubic inch engine, which came from the 600 model. The letters SEL stood for S-Class, fuel injection, and long wheelbase. The body came from the pen of Mercedes-Benz designer Paul Braque. Its clean lines conveying an impression of understatement, timelessness, and elegance. This sedan could hold its own with sports cars such as the Porsche 911S or the Jaguar E-Type 4.2. With an output of 250 horsepower, the 6.3 could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 7 seconds. Its top speed was more than 135 miles per hour. Standard equipment features were relatively opulent for the day and included automatic transmission, power steering, electric windows, velvet upholstery, and central locking. In a survey on luxury cars carried out in the USA, the 300 SEL 6.3 was ranked top and awarded the title Greatest Sedan in the World.
Gesellschaft in Cannstatt were bursting at the seams in 1903. Orders for Mercedes cars were pouring in from everywhere. The workforce grew rapidly. The new 60-horsepower Mercedes Simplex, which appeared in the same year, proved how determined the Mercedes design engineers were to maintain their technical edge. With its 60 horsepower, it was stronger than any previous Mercedes, served as both high-performance racing and touring car, and became the unbeatable top model in Europe. This car, featuring luxury touring appointments, belonged to Emil Jelinek, It was laid up behind the Villa Mercedes in Nice for almost 40 years before being rediscovered in the early 1950s. 35 horsepower was more in the middle of the field, but its appointments were exquisite. Brass side mirror, enlarged rear screen, removable wheel rims, brass door handles, brass lamps, swept horns, a luggage rack on the roof, and the Benz logo on the hubcaps demonstrate both useful and brand-conscious design. The body was still made of wood. Coachwork was a good source of income for cabinet makers. And as usual, the model was sold in different body variants, as Phaeton or open touring car, as a closed sedan, and as a landaulet, like this one. The word comes from coach building and describes a vehicle with a folding top over the rear bench seat. When it rained, the passengers in the rear closed the top and sat well protected on fine fabric, while the chauffeur at the front had to stick to his weatherproof leather seat no matter what the weather. But the war's aftermath would long be felt. Inflation, unemployment, and poverty determined everyday life in Germany. Benz & Company and Daimler Motorengesellschaft were two companies which also feared for their survival. They merged in 1926 to form Daimler-Benz AG. In January 1933, Adolf Hitler took over power. The most terrible chapter in the history of humanity commenced. By the end of World War II in 1945, millions of people had died violent deaths. The involvement in the Nazi war economy and the use of forced labor entangled Daimler-Benz in the Nazi system of injustice. By war's end, the factories of Daimler-Benz AG were almost completely destroyed. New engine technologies in between the wars, Daimler-Benz helped two new engine technologies gain acceptance: the supercharged engine and the diesel engine. Supercharged engines, actually developed for airplanes, pushed the Mercedes cars to new record performance. The introduction of diesel engines set new standards of economy and reliability for commercial vehicles and passenger cars. At the 1921 Berlin Motor Show, the 1035 horsepower and 620 horsepower Mercedes models were presented, the first newly developed post-war cars of Daimler Motorengesellschaft. Both caused quite a stir because they contained a technical sensation. They were the first production cars with supercharged engines. During World War I, Daimler Motorengesellschaft had developed the supercharger, then called a blower, to compress the gasoline-air mixture of aero engines in order to keep output constant, even at high altitudes. Now, Paul Daimler, the son of the company founder and chief design engineer, successfully applied this principle to passenger and racing cars as well. When the first two supercharged cars were launched in further improved versions in 1923, as the 1040 horsepower and 625 horsepower Mercedes, they marked the beginning of a series of powerful Mercedes cars whose loud roar gave the entire decade its name, the Roaring Twenties. In 1927, Ferdinand Porsche, then chief engineer at Mercedes-Benz, designed this Mercedes-Benz Model S high-performance sports car. The car's first appearance was quite spectacular. At the inauguration of the Nürburgring in June 1927, the two Mercedes-Benz drivers, Rudolf Caracciola and Adolf Rosenberger, scored a double victory. Caracciola attained an average speed of 63 miles an hour over the 225-mile distance. Though developed for racing, the Model S was also sold as an exclusive production sports car. Despite its tremendous performance, it proved extraordinarily robust and reliable. In the model designation 26, 120, 180 horsepower Model S, the S stands for sport. 26 is the taxable horsepower. 120 stands for the engine's output under normal aspiration. 180 for the output with supercharger. This 500K Special Roadster was the elegant luxury sports car of the beautiful, rich, and powerful in 1936. Like all 500K cars, this Special Roadster was practically custom-made. The Special Roadster was the most elegant and expensive of the total 8 body variants in which the Model 500K was offered. The 500K was not only alluringly beautiful, it was also uncommonly powerful and safe. When the supercharged 8-cylinder inline engine propelled the 500K to a speed as high as 100 miles an hour, the newly designed front axle, introduced in 1933, ensured an extremely safe and comfortable driving experience.
Beginnings to the present day. Carl Benz and Gottlieb Daimler designed the world's first trucks and delivery vehicles. With their reliability and economic efficiency, diesel-engine Mercedes-Benz trucks laid the foundations for motorized short-radius distribution and long-distance transport. Today, Mercedes-Benz offers a large diversity of transport solutions, ranging from the small van to the heavy-duty truck, to keep the supply of people and economic cycles in full swing day in and day out.
Races are not just won on the track. Sometimes the difference is whether a car can be brought in for repairs quickly and then hauled to the next race. So as early as 1924, the Mercedes Racing Department converted a supercharged Mercedes car into a transporter for the 2-liter racing car of that period. 30 years later, history repeated itself. The Mercedes-Benz testing department constructed a special high-speed transporter for racing cars from various car components. Its task was to bring silver arrows in need of repair to the factory and from there back to the place of action as quickly as possible. But Mercedes-Benz withdrew from racing in 1955, and the transporter was not used as often as originally planned. But it turned out to be an optimal advertising vehicle, made the pages of many newspapers, and impressed the public with blistering performance. Its top speed of 105 miles an hour with luggage was a sensation for a transporter in those days. The original model remained in the service of the testing department until 1967 and was then scrapped. Based on archived documents, the Mercedes-Benz Museum had a true to the original replica of the racing car transporter produced in the year 2000 in minutely detailed work. By the Mexican government. Then in October 1955, Daimler-Benz officially withdrew from motorsports. The two racing cars remained unused until Rudolf Uhlenhaut, head of the test department at Mercedes-Benz, announced he would use one of the 300 SLRs as his personal car. Soon he became a familiar sight, chasing up and down Germany's motorways. From then on, the vehicle became known internally as the Uhlenhaut Coupe. Normally, icons have no successors, but in the case of the 300 SL, automotive history made a welcome exception. The Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Roadster was presented at the Geneva Motor Show in March 1957. As with the Gullwing Coupe, the initiative to develop the car came from American importer Maximilian E. Hoffman. Hoffman had sold several hundred Gullwings on the American market. Now he saw sales opportunities in the southern sunshine states of the USA for an open-topped, more comfortable Roadster version of the 300 SL. For the Roadster, the space frame was redesigned in order to accommodate side doors. Compared with the coupe, the Roadster looked tamer and seemed to have lost some of the racing car temperament. On the other hand, it was a more luxurious vehicle, and that was no bad selling feature for the USA. War years began. The ravaged country had to be rebuilt in hard work. Life slowly regained order with the Marshall Plan, the currency reform, and the founding of the Federal Republic of Germany. In the social market economy, Daimler-Benz AG could again unfold its economic dynamism. Mercedes-Benz trucks were dependable helpers during reconstruction and stimulated exports. Mercedes-Benz passenger cars also made a successful return to the market, initially with revised pre-war models, later on with a radically new design and a brilliant new look. The brand with the star became the symbol of a period that went down in history as the German economic miracle. In the 50s, short-range distribution quickly gained in importance. Mercedes-Benz extended its commercial vehicle range and conquered new markets with small vans. In the passenger car sector, with the self-supporting chassis body structure, the Mercedes-Benz engineers established a fundamentally new design principle, which radically changed the appearance of cars. In order to protect drivers from wind and irritating dust during long-distance races such as the Carrera Panamericana, in 1955 the Mercedes-Benz Racing Department equipped two chassis for the 300 SLR racing sports car with coupe bodies. But the two 8-cylinder racing cars, with a top speed of 180 miles per hour, never went into service. The 6th edition of the Carrera Panamericana, scheduled to be held in December 1955, was cancelled in August. Globalization faced the community of nations with new challenges, in a world in which goods and information can now circulate more quickly than ever before.
The 1980s marked the beginning of a period of considerable social and political change. The end of the Cold War, globalization, an increasingly networked world, and a series of major economic crises led to a new sense of social responsibility. At the same time, there was an increasing awareness of the impact of environmental issues on people's lives. The Mercedes-Benz brand faced up to the automotive challenges with, on the one hand, a whole range of innovative technical solutions, the optimization of the internal combustion engine, different forms of hybridization to suit a variety of situations, and electric engines powered either by battery or fuel cell were all milestones along the company's road to emission-free mobility. On top of this, the company was opening up new markets, contributing to the construction and expansion of sustainable infrastructures, and developing innovative concepts for mobility. Carl? Mercedes-Benz has been a key player in the further development of the diesel engine for many decades now. The noisy compression ignition engines that required a pause for thought during pre-glow have given way to refined, high-tech units. For example, the 4-cylinder OM651 diesel engine, featuring what is now a 4th-generation common rail system. In this system, the fuel is compressed by a high-pressure pump and delivered to the cylinders via a shared line or common rail. The vehicle electronics determine the injection timing and the quantity of fuel injected, ensuring that a precisely measured quantity of diesel is injected into the combustion chamber at exactly the right moment. The result is a very smooth-running engine, low fuel consumption, and reduced pollutant emission.
The building of the Berlin Wall in 1961 sealed the division of Germany. The Cold War set an unprecedented arms race going. Western Europe formed an alliance. The economy continued to boom. Guest workers arrived in the country. In the late 1960s, student protests called the foundations of state and society into question. The oil shocks of the 70s made the limits to growth clear. The environmental debate brought about a change in values, which also extended to the car. More road safety and less energy consumption were the demand of the day. For many years, Mercedes-Benz engineers had been doing systematic research in these areas. Now they quickly and purposefully put their solutions into practice. The crumple zone, Safety lock and safety steering system rank Mercedes-Benz among the pioneers of safety research. Around 1980, two entirely new systems, the anti-lock braking system ABS and the airbag, both developed for production and put on the market by Mercedes-Benz, set new safety standards for the car and its occupants.
Thank you very much for visiting us, and goodbye.
Safety and sportiness can go hand in hand. The 230 SL was the world's first sports car to feature a safety body. Like all sedans from the 220 series, it had a rigid passenger compartment and deformable front and rear ends as crumple zones. The Roadster, introduced in 1963, combined a high degree of handling safety with excellent comfort and performance. The characteristic feature of the 230 SL was its unmistakable roof shape. The detachable, inward-sloping coupe roof, which in profile resembled the form of a Chinese temple, gave the 230 SL its nickname. The late 1980s saw a historic turning point when the Eastern Bloc collapsed and Germany was reunified. New states and markets emerged in the East. Trade barriers came down. Communication technologies networked the world.
Jürgen, darf ich mal dich irgendwie auch ein bisschen ins Bild rücken?
Ja. Du kommst jetzt da unten vor dir in den Züge.
For Grand Prix races beginning in 1934, the rules limited the weight of the cars to 750 kilograms, equivalent to 1,650 pounds. Mercedes-Benz responded by building this W25 Formula racing car. The aluminum body and a frame perforated by numerous holes saved weight. One can't help but hear the 350 horsepower of the 8-cylinder inline engine with 4-valve technology, twin superchargers, and 2 pressure carburetors. Startled journalists called the W25 the world's loudest car. It had its racing debut on the 3rd of June 1934 in the Eiffel race on the Nürburgring. The Silver Arrow legend was born there. On the eve of the race, the car weighed 1 kilogram too much. A start appeared impossible. Overnight, the car's white paint was sanded down to the bare silvery, shiny aluminum. The W25 was allowed to start and won the race, with Manfred von Brauchitsch at the wheel. late 1980s saw a historic turning point when the Eastern Bloc collapsed and Germany was reunified. New states and markets emerged in the East. Trade barriers came down. Communication technologies networked the world. Globalization faced the community of nations with new challenges in a world in which goods and information can now circulate more quickly than ever before.
Ben şeyden tedirgin oluyorum. Dokununca algılamayı çok müsait dokunsam alıyor mu?
Belki de destek geçiyordunuz.
Öyle bunların hepsi kalkıştaki tepki sürelerine kadar gidiyor. Bir saniyenin geçti. Bayağı yüksek.
Irgendwann früher oder später muss alles nochmal neu an. Ja, ich werde es später versuchen.
Okay, was man weiß. Aber nicht im Winter.
وصلنا كذا إلى نهاية الميوزيوم. في أماكن ما قدرت أغطيها للأسف، الوقت ما أسعفني، تقريبا ساعة ونص وقالوا بيقفلوا، فمضطرين إن نخرج من الميوزيوم وننزل تحت. راح نشوف إيش موجود تحت، بس أسلم الجهاز تبعهم وننزل. الوضع مطر، لكن الجو مو بارد، فقط مطر. هذا مطعم شاورما الزين، بس ما نعرف كيف الشاورما تبعهم. وهنا مطعم يا شام، مطعم شامي عندهم شاورما برضو. الشاورما تبعهم شهي، لكن نروح للمطعم اللي اختاره أبو رايد وناخذ منه، وبعدين نرجع. انت شفت المطعم؟ احنا كنا جايين كذا. ها؟ الندى، الندى الرستورانت، مطعم الندى. نروح المطعم ونشوف ايش عندهم من اكلات في المنيو وناخذ ان شاء الله يكون شيء مناسب ويناسبنا، لانه امس قضيناها برجر، فإحنا اليوم نبغى شيء وجبة دسمة. هذا جزء من السوق نزول. طبعا أبو رايد وعمار تعبوا، قالوا والله معاك ما راح نمشي، بس أنا قلت لهم أنا همشي، لأن المكان جوا هناك زحمة وشكله أكتيف، حتى إن البطارية فصلت بس رجعت شغلتها تاني، يمكن تفصل معايا. هنشوف إيش معانا وإيش عندهم العالم هناك متجمعين. جينا إلى هنا وما نشوف إيش الزحمة وليش الناس موجودة هنا، هذا كلام تاني. خلينا نشوف وإيش الجماعات هناك، شكله زي كذا حراج، يا أهل الحراج، أو شيء زي البازار. نقرب ونشوف إيش موجود عندهم. هذه كلها مطاعم تشيكن. وهذا مكان البازار. بالفعل هو بازار. واو ما شاء الله. وهنا السوق كمان، يعني المنطقة مزحومة ومليانة. شوف ايش عندهم، شكله بازار كلها اكل عالم، اكلات جالسين. أكلات. كباب.